Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our Tech Talk. Today, we are going to talk about something actually very exciting, traveling and technology, how technology helps us when we are traveling. Amit, Amit is here with us today. He actually backpacked a couple of years ago through South America. He told me a lot of stories about it. It was an amazing experience from what I heard and the pictures I've seen, and he also shared with me all the ways technology has helped him to sort of manage the travel, arrange his routes, and all the sort of places that he visited, and he sort of noted down how everything came together with the use of technology. And we thought it would be a really good topic for us to share. So you guys, when you're traveling as well, you guys can take some help, take some advice from Amit's experience, and sort of adopt how and use technology to enhance your overall traveling experience. So thank you, Amit, for agreeing to talk to us. Let's dive right into it.
Thanks, Rinat, for that good introduction. Yes, I had traveled South America in 2018, 2019 for 5 months with my wife. And I think we were quite lucky to travel in a time where technology is so capable that we didn't have to worry about so many things that we would have had to worry about in the past, right from bookings for flights or accommodation, transportation, cash, translations, navigation, etc. So I think technology played a very important role, especially having a smartphone, which is like a mini computer in the palm of your hands. Because in olden days, we used to travel with maps, we used to take diaries, we used to travel with a pen, we used to have a camera, we used to have guides. But with technology, you have all the information in the palm of your hands, and that enables you uh, to explore to explore new routes, to explore new ideas, to connect with new people. I was really amazed with which I was able to use the technology on a day-to-day basis and how it enhanced our journey throughout the trip. Because as you mentioned, we were backpacking across South America, so we had a particular route, we had to reach particular destination. I was traveling on Indian passports. We had to make sure that we reach certain destinations on a certain time. So technology helped us really well. So in today's talk, I will explain some of the applications and tools, and even some of the websites that I used to help plan my whole journey and how it helped me and my wife.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you think about travel, I mean, immediately the first things you think about is, oh, the destination and how exciting the experience is going to be. But you don't automatically, or you don't, it's not the first thought that comes in your head about technology and how it can be integrated, or how necessary now it has become to any sort of traveling, and how um, you know I mean, when we're thinking about traveling and technology, we might think, oh, communication is maybe one of the things, or just booking. But no, as you mentioned, there are so many aspects where technology can help. I mean, before, like 20 years ago, translation would have been a nightmare, whichever destination it is. But now with real-time translation, well, sort of real-time translation, that makes a massive difference to any country you're going to. And also, it is always kind of risky a little bit. You're going out of your comfort zone to a new country, to a new culture, but you get all that information in the palm of your hands. It is actually so necessary now.
Yes, I mean, during our travel, I was quite surprised with the way technology has already advanced, and I think we take so many things for granted. And it was quite crucial for me to actually, I mean, it's good that we are doing this talk because not many people are aware that you can do so many things while you're traveling. In the olden days, what used to happen, we used to travel with a Lonely Planet book. We used to have a hard copy of a big map. We used to have, as I mentioned, cameras and notepads and pen, and phone numbers written down on a piece of paper. But with smartphone, we don't need any of it. We can always find Wi-Fi somewhere. We can always take the numbers of people that we connect with, and we can connect with them on Instagram or Facebook, and etc. etc. So yes, I mean, I was really blessed to travel in an age like this, because then I didn't have to worry about so many different things.
So what are the different? I mean, if you were to like tell me like these are the five things, or like communication or translation, what are the main things that in technology that helped you in your travel?
Sure, Rinat. So I think the first thing is route planning. So whenever you go traveling or backpacking or long-term travel, especially, you need to decide on a route, and you can use Google Maps to plan a route, and then you can you can star places in Google Maps for places or locations that you want to go. But there is another application called Google My Maps, and that helps you to plan a route properly. You put pins across different parts of the map, and then you can connect them via a line, and that roughly gives you an idea about what the route you're planning to take. So in our case, we went to the southern part, and then we went our way up. That's route planning. So Google Maps is very essential, because it helps us to see what borders we need to cross, and how we cross them, when we cross them, and what are the places near or close to the border, and are the cities that we are going to very far away from a border, and do we need to take a flight, or can we cross the border by bus. So route planning, I think, is quite important. The second thing is flights, or the way you travel. So you can take buses, trains, or flights. So we normally took flights to land in the continent, and then we took flights within the country, and then we took buses to cross the borders of one country to another, because we felt it's much cheaper to cross borders by land than by air. So you have your route, you have your travel. Now you want to talk about your accommodation. So accommodation is again very important. As you travel, you need to make sure that you have a place to stay, a place to rest, a place where you can take a shower, recuperate. You can rest for a bit, and you get some nice hot food. So I think those are very important. So for that, we relied on certain websites, and of course reviews. So once your accommodation, travel, and route is sorted, then you think about cash, or how will you make payments. So we carried two cards with us. One was a normal credit card, which helps us to rent cars, because most of the cars, they ask for a deposit. So credit cards help us with that. And then we carried a normal debit card. In the UK, we have this amazing bank called Starling. I'll get into it in detail further during the talk. But yes, so you need to worry about your cash. Then the other things that you need to worry about, which may not bother a lot of people, but during long-term travel, it does bother, is how do you communicate with people and communicate with your family. So there are two aspects: communicating with tourists whom you meet across the journey, communicating with locals in the country, when you go out to eat, when you go out for an event, where you go out for walks or guided tours, and then how do you communicate with your family. So there are different tools that you can use in order to communicate across the different areas. And uh, and then the last thing is document management. So as we travel, we carry a lot of things, like we carry our passports, which has all the visa stamped. Then we carry all the tickets or the boarding passes. Then we have some other travel documents. Then we have travel vaccinations, etc. So documents related to that. If you're planning to drive, you might also have an international driving license or a driving permit. So you'll have those documents. So managing all those documents, managing all the tickets, managing all the bookings in one place is also quite important. So you have to manage all the documents in a central repository, which can be accessed by anyone. So either yourself, your partner, or your family. So I think these are the key essential things that you need to worry about, apart from many other things. But these are the key essential things. One is route, one is the travel, how you will travel, the accommodation, the cash, the communication channel, and yeah. So and then document management.
Wow, there is so many things, involved in a long-term traveling plan. That is amazing. And to be honest, one of the things I just noticed is that there is a lot of technology to help, but one of the main thing is organization. You have to
Yes.
be organized and note down all the information and plan beforehand, and that's very important for to make like a long-term backpacking traveling successful, because to keep track of all the things that you just mentioned, that is just crazy. And that's one of the places where technology helps us a lot as well, to keep yourselves organized and keep track of everything you've done and what you're going to do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
this is amazing. So all the things that you said, obviously, I think you mentioned navigation, my maps as well. um, so if let's go again. I mean, let's get into a little bit more detail on each of these topics. But before that, I think one of the things that did you mention about like photography and like how to do data management, all the information that you're experiencing, because obviously that would be a main one of the main part of traveling, right? You want those memories of your experiences, so you need like you don't we
Capture
don't
those experience. Yes.
yes, we don't need to carry a separate camera nowadays with the advent of our mobile phones. But how do you manage the the photos that you take? Do you need micro SD card? Do you upload as you go? How is that done?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, capturing memories is important, and I think it is essential. I mean, you are traveling long term, and you don't want to miss out on any of the experiences once you come back. And actually, it happens. Once you come back from travel and you get involved in work, you slowly start forgetting things. But those photographs that you have taken during your journey, I think that rekindles those memories. So it's actually quite important. During our travel, we initially carried a camera, but then we had to sell it off because it was not that useful and it was just bulky. So we ended up using the smartphone. iPhone camera is quite decent, and even Samsung or any Android phone, they have decent cameras these days, and they are good for close-ups, for your photos with a background, but they are not good if you want to do night photography, or you want to or you want to maybe do a like zoom into a place which is very far away. So for those kind of photography, it's not that great. And then you also want to record your experiences when you're doing an activity, say you're whitewater rafting or you're skydiving, or you are going in a bus or in a car, or you're doing bungee jumping or anything like that, which you might want to do when you are traveling across different countries. So for that, I recommend an action camera. So the most popular action camera is GoPro. It's waterproof, so I'd use that for scuba diving. I'd use that for skydiving, whitewater rafting, so all sorts of activities. So I think those two cameras should be enough. And if you want to carry a camera, a mirrorless would be better compared to a normal SLR, because an SLR camera with a lens is quite heavy and quite bulky. With a mirrorless camera, you reduce the size of the camera, the weight reduces, the size reduces. So that helps actually in packing and also in just managing the space that you have in your backpack.
Right. Okay. So mirrorless is that I actually have very little understanding on cameras. I've always relied on my phone to take photos. What is mirrorless? Is it just like a type?
So Yeah. It's a different type of camera. So normally what happens is you have a sensor in your camera and you have a lens, and the lens actually allows the light to come in, but the light doesn't directly fall on the sensor. There is a mirror, and the light falls on the mirror and then reflects to the sensor. So that's how the normal SLR cameras work. In a mirrorless camera, the light normally falls directly on the sensor, and that's why the body is a bit more compact. And
Right.
they were not that great when they were initially launched. They could not match the quality of a SLR camera, the speed, etc. But with the help of with the advent of more progress year on year, the mirrorless cameras have become better. The other thing is, in a SLR camera, you will have a viewfinder, so you can normally view through the glass and see what the lens is seeing. So that's also because of the mirror. Now, if you remove the mirror, there is nothing to see through the viewfinder. So normally, it's a digital image that you see. So whatever the
Right.
sensor is seeing, the digital image you see in your viewfinder. So mirrorless cameras do have a viewfinder, but you don't see what you're seeing physically. You see it digitally. So
Right, right,
that's the
right.
difference between a mirrorless and a SLR camera.
I see, I see. Okay, that's very interesting. The other thing I think we also need to mention is is a selfie stick, because you know what, if you can't take selfie, then obviously you need to be able to take selfie, and you know some of the selfie stick you have a Bluetooth connection, so you can actually keep the camera a little bit far away and then yet have timed photo taken. You can be quite creative if you have the camera
Yes.
controls in your hand while the camera is a little bit further away. So that's the Bluetooth control part is actually another interesting technology to adopt. So one of the other things I always thought of is, how what's the best way of you know sort of utilizing the memories that are accumulated throughout the travel. Do you upload on Instagram as you go, like, or do you save everything until the end of the trip and then come back and then you know uh, blast your feed with all the experiences all together? What's the best way?
So the best way is to post as you travel, especially on Instagram or any other social media. So you don't want to post everything. You want to post the key things. It's not just for you or your audience, but also for your family. They also want to see where you have been to, what you have done. So it's actually quite important to post on a regular basis. In terms of storage, normally carrying a traditional hard drive is quite heavy and quite big, and less storage is available for the amount of space that you have to physically carry. So we carried a SSD drive, a solid state drive. So these solid state drives are very compact, very lightweight. They have no moving parts, so they will not get damaged with jerks or anything. So those are quite reliable, and I would highly recommend those. So we had carried two SSDs, and normally for photographs, one SSD should be enough. But normally when you record a video, what happens is the size of the videos are quite huge. It can go up to 1 GB, 2 GB, depending upon how long you record a video and in what format. Is it a 1080p or a 4K video, etc. So based on that, you will have to decide your storage. But anything between 512 GB, 250 GB is enough for photographs for the whole trip. Maybe two 250 GB or maybe two 500 GB SSDs, and that should suffice you for the whole trip for 5 to 6 months. And then, of course, you try to upload things on your Google Drive, but you will have to pay for extra storage. So Google Drive, I think, is free up to 30 GB. Anything above that, you'll have to pay for it. So you will have to plan everything in advance, whether you want to carry, upload, etc. The other thing you need to worry about is theft. So sometimes, or lost goods. So sometimes you can lose your hard drives or camera, and you can also get robbed. In
Oh,
countries, especially when you're traveling, it is a possibility, and you have to be aware of those risks. And that's why it's very important that whatever data you have, you also have a backup of that. So So normally, yes, it's important that you have multiple copies of your data. Try to upload, try to have a physical copy, etc. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, so this is actually where it you know how the division comes. Like, you know, if you're uploading as you go, then the question is, you know, where would you upload, and you know what kind of how would you connect to Wi-Fi's in different places, whether your mobile phone that you know that you're going to be using your SIM card would allow for, you know, internet in foreign you know, in foreign networks, or do you buy a local SIM card? What's
Yes.
preference and that kind of stuff. But then again, if you also want to have the I mean, when you mentioned SSD, I was actually thinking of, you know, a better way would be like micro SD cards, because they're very compact. They're, you know, like 10 micro SD cards would probably be smaller than a big 500 GB SSD hard drive, wouldn't it? Or
True, true, true. But the thing is, the smaller the things are, the more chances of losing them.
of
So
course,
normally
it's
you lose a
about the
key,
balance.
but you normally don't lose. Yeah, so it's about the size. So the smaller the things are, the more probability of you losing them. So if you have
Right.
less things to manage, it's easier. If you have many things to manage, it becomes difficult and you tend to lose things. So
Of
another
course.
key important, key point to note is have less things to manage. If you have too many small things, you're bound to lose something.
Right. That is interest. That is a very important piece of information, because yeah, you want to do so many things, you know, go to so many countries, and
Yes.
you know all of these things would have, you know, require, like, you know, if you're worried about all the small things you're carrying, then that takes away from the overall experience. Absolutely.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so tell us a little bit more about the, you know, the SIM cards and, you know, overall mobile network communication and internet, and how would you manage that? Would you get a tourist?
So yeah, yes. So normally, what happens is, as soon as you land in the airport, these days airports do have Wi-Fi. You might have to register, or you can straight away connect. The moment you connect to your Wi-Fi in the airport, you can call a Uber, so a taxi to your destination, and make sure that you select the right card in your Uber, because what happens is normally if you select your home country credit card or debit card, it will charge you in that currency and you might incur foreign exchange transaction fees, etc., etc. So make sure that you have the right card before you order your Uber. Always order Uber in the local currency if it is available. If not, maybe try to withdraw some cash. Withdrawing cash at the airport is always expensive. So if you're landing for the first time and if you can use an Uber, that's the best way to do it. And then as soon as you reach a hotel, hostel, or any other accommodation that you're seeing, that you are planning to stay, you can always ask them where the nearest ATM is, withdraw some cash, and then plan your travel accordingly. In terms of then the connection when you reach your hostel or hotel, is that you will have Wi-Fi again there, so that's not a problem. The major problem will be when you are actually going for a tour. So suppose you visit a site which is very far away, you don't have any Wi-Fi, and it's difficult for you to order a cab or a taxi. It's actually important to have a local SIM card, because sometimes it's easy to just call someone for asking for help, asking for directions, or asking for any such things. People are normally gracious enough to lend their own mobile phone in case you need it, but it's always useful. So in my case, when we traveled, I had a dual SIM phone, the OnePlus 5. It's quite old now, but it served the purpose. So this has two SIM cards. So what I did is I took out one of my SIM cards which I normally use for calling India, so I was not needing that anymore, and then I replaced that with a local SIM. Getting a local SIM again is as straightforward as buying a mobile SIM card in the UK. You just go to a shop, pick up a card, and you insert it, and then you follow the instructions and you start using it. And I normally use it for data, very less for voice calling, because you need internet more than you need to call someone. Because if you have internet, you can call for a Uber. If you have internet, you can search for maps or you can search for navigation. So I think data is crucial. So in that way, we balanced using SIM cards and Wi-Fi, etc. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So going back to, you were talking about, as soon as you land, in an airport, one of the first thing you do is call an Uber and then go to your accommodation. So tell us a bit more about accommodation, from planning, I don't know, do you use Airbnb, or what are the alternatives, and how, give us a bit more insight on the whole thing of accommodation.
So when it comes to accommodation, I think review is very important because you want to stay in a clean place. You also want to have a place where it has hot showers. Especially when you're traveling, you want something clean and comfortable and with hot showers and if food if possible because you want to minimize the cost. So hostels are good because normally hostels will give you breakfast and that helps in saving the cost for one meal. With Airbnb, you sometimes get to stay in the center of a city or with a family, and they sometimes can give you good tips. So we used a combination of hostels, hotels, and Airbnbs. Airbnb is very straightforward. You go to a place and then you search for accommodation on Airbnb, give your dates, contact the host, and then confirm the booking, and you pay in the local currency. Now, in some places which are very small, you will not find Airbnbs, and that's where you will have hostels. So if you are going to a very popular place, more or less there will be a lot of hostels there to accommodate. But hostel means you will have private accommodations and shared dorms. So private rooms, you can stay if you're going as a if you're going with someone. So I went with my wife. So in some cases, we booked a private room, but private rooms are a bit more expensive. And sometimes it's actually good to stay in a dorm because you get to talk to more people. But in general, hostels are better than Airbnbs because in hostels you meet other travelers and they give you more insights as to what are the places to visit, what are the tours worth going for, and what are the things which you might enjoy, what are the things to avoid, what are the good places to eat, etc., etc. They can also tell you about your journey ahead. So suppose you're going from one city to another, they can tell you what are the good things in the other city and do you want to go there or do you want to skip. So I think initially you mentioned about technology and how important it is for backpacking. But I think there is one crucial aspect. Technology is only important if you're traveling very fast. If you're traveling very slow, you don't need all this tech because if you travel very slow, take couple of years, you don't need that much technology because in the end, you can always ask people for help and you are not time bound. Technology helps when you have limited time and you want to manage things efficiently. So that's where technology
Right.
plays a very important role.
Right. Okay. And also, I actually really like the fact that you're mentioning about the benefits of this living in a hostel and that kind of thing, because I really believe in the power of community, because, that opens up to other fellow travelers. You get so much more information. And, I mean, even when we're like, as a developer, when I'm stuck, I go to the forums and,
Yes,
I ask someone and, I sometimes I get even better solution to what I wasn't even thinking about. And I can
yes,
imagine, if you are in a sort of community of people, or always meeting other travelers, maybe you'll never see them ever again, but they might give you some insight on somewhere to go, or and a very cool feature of doing something differently, or that kind of advice is really helpful, I think, in this kind of situation.
it
So
is. It is actually helpful. And what happens is when you connect with other travelers, they will have their Instagram pages or Facebook pages, and you can actually follow them. And then you can get some ideas.
yes,
Like a
yes,
lot of times what happens is you have a fixed route in mind, but when you meet other travelers you actually adapt. So that's why it's also important, don't book everything in advance. Book few things,
right,
the immediate leg of your journey. So suppose you're going from A to B and C, D, E. Book A, B, C. Don't book D and E. Have that flexibility because you might want to change your plan. So you need to have that flexibility in your plan as well. There is a direction in which you must travel, but there should be a flexibility as well. Otherwise, what will happen is you will get stuck and then you will say, "Oh, but this traveler was saying that's a very interesting place to visit, but now you don't have any time because you have already booked for a place." So you need to have that flexibility. So normally, what we did is we booked. So suppose we are going to a new country, we book a place, and then maybe we book another place. That's it. and we keep all the other options open. Because sometimes what happens is when you meet a hosteler person in the hostel, or even your Airbnb host, they give you really amazing tips. And those tips can, like, I mean, I've visited places which was supposed to be just a stopover, and we ended up having the best time of our lives just because the host recommended us what to do, and it was just an incredible experience. So I think that flexibility is also is quite important.
Yes, yes, agile methodology as opposed to waterfall methodology. Yeah, definitely, definitely keep yourself some room to, be agile. The other thing is obviously these tips and cool information that you get, that kind of also emphasizes the power of word of mouth. I mean, obviously with technology we get reviews and we get various information and in our fingertips, but there are still, word of mouth is so important still in our society, that not all the information you can just get on the internet very quickly, because a lot of the times you don't even know what you're looking for. But when you meet someone who is part of your journey, they could direct you to some amazing experiences. That is cool. The other thing I actually wanted to add as well, when we were talking about hostels, I used to have some involvement in music and theater and that kind of stuff. And I know of this website called Digs List, which is actually, mostly catered for musicians who do various tours, etc. But, obviously it's expensive to book hotels and stuff like that. So there is a
Yes,
community of people where they just let you stay in their couch for one night or two nights, and for a very cheap price. And this is a website where you can get that kind of people who are willing to help you. It's more for arts industry, musicians or theater, but anyone can use it, and it's actually
sure.
a very good community as well. And they are also all around the world, so it's pretty cool.
It is
um
actually cool in the sense that in hostels you do meet all kinds of people, and it's interesting that you mentioned about musicians, because we went to some of the hostels where we actually did salsa dancing, we did yoga. So it's actually quite interesting. You do meet a lot of interesting people, and then we had spent our time in a hostel during New Year's Eve. So we went out with all the people in the hostel on the streets of in Ecuador, in its capital, and it was quite amazing. So yes, you do meet interesting travelers. The other thing about accommodation, I think, which I missed, is reviews. Reviews are important. So whenever you look for accommodation, try to look for pictures. If there is a picture available, I think that will give you a very good idea about how the place is. And look at the most immediate reviews. Don't look at the top rated reviews. Look at the most immediate reviews, because that helps in assessing whether the place has been maintained recently or there have been some issues with the place. Um, so hostels will have lots of various reviews. So you have to take everything with a pinch of salt, because people have different preferences. So some people's idea of cleanliness and some people's idea of hygiene and some people's idea of order is quite different from everyone else. So you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. So you look at photos, you look at reviews, you look at where the location of the place is. Is it close to the town center? It's also important to be close to the town center, because that way you can have places where you can eat, cafes, restaurants, pubs, bars, etc., etc. So yeah, that's also important.
Right, right, right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, reviews, and that is one of the things that technology enables us to have. Because before, yeah, we could replace Google Maps with book. Although inconvenient, the information is still there. But
Yes.
reviews like that, it wasn't possible before the way we have now. That kind of information and insight on where we're going, that is a very cool feature that technology has allowed us to have nowadays. Right. So we've talked about accommodation, but let's come back a little bit, because in order to get to the accommodation, we need to take first book a flight and then get to the destination. So tell me a little bit, tell us a little bit about flights, how you would book it, how you would plan it, what's the best site, and how you could get potentially, cheap flight rates, etc. What's your advice?
So normally, it's good if you can book flights in advance, because the more advanced you book a flight, the cheaper it is. If you book flights very close to the time of your departure, then those will be very expensive. So some of the flights we actually booked way in advance, almost 3-4 months in advance, because that gives us a very good rate. The other thing is travel light. I think a lot of times when we call backpackers, there is a reason they are called backpackers, because everything that they need is on their back in a pack. And that helps in reducing the check-in luggage. And most of the airlines now charge to have a check-in luggage, especially small haul, not long haul, but small haul flights. So it's important that you have everything in a small pack, so it's easy to pack everything. You have less stuff, easy to manage, and so you can move quickly through the check-in and security. For booking flights, I normally relied on Google Flights for first getting an idea of what are the flight options available. And then once I have an option of, okay, these are the flights that are available and these are the times that they're available for, I normally try to book them from the website directly, because that normally sometimes gives you the best deal. If you use Skyscanner, Expedia, or anything, these agents sometimes they add on top some amount of money. Expedia is good because whatever price they quote, it's the final price. They don't add anything in the final bill. Websites like Skyscanner, you can select a flight, but by the time you go to the agent website and book a flight, the price has increased a bit. With Google Flights, it gives you the option to book directly with the airline, but sometimes they give options of booking a flight in the local currency, which might look cheaper, but sometimes you have to go to the airline just to make sure that okay, you can actually buy that flight. So it is important. So I used a mixture of Google Flights, Skyscanner, Expedia, and the local airlines, and that gave me a good idea of what to pick and based on the price. And I think it's also important to understand that you cannot be too finicky about the price. If you're too fussed about the price, you'll never book anything. So if you're booking some things in advance, try to book the best possible things. And if you think that you will get a better deal, book it then. Don't waste your time looking for deal every single day. So yeah,
Right.
I think that's the best advice.
That's actually a very good point. Yeah, I mean, if you spend all of your time looking for deals on everything you're buying, then obviously that would, that would be quite exhausting. But actually, about booking flights, I actually have two very cool travel hacks myself. So that let me share them with you as well. So one of the things is if you use a VPN before booking a flight, and change the country, appear as though you're booking it from a different country. If you're booking the flight from, say, for example, India or Bangladesh, a lot of the times the flight price is actually shown as a lot cheaper because
Yes.
third world countries or non-Western countries, they the airlines kind of try to cater for people from all destination or from all departure airports. And if you use VPN and appear as though you're booking from these countries, you get a much better deals. A lot of the times it's worth checking sometimes.
It is definitely, yes.
Yes, yes. And the other travel hack I have is a lot of the times, sometimes your flight is, um, so if you're, for example, going from, say, from London to Denmark, uh, but if you were to go to Dubai with a transit airport being Denmark, then it would have been a lot cheaper. In
Yes. Yes.
so
A long layover. Yes. A
yes,
long
yes. So
layover. Yes.
sometimes it's cheaper to buy the longer flight, but then when you reach the transit country, you don't use the rest of your flight. You just come out of come out in that airport. That way you end up saving some money. And there are some websites
Ah,
which actually cater for this exact kind of hack. So they will find out all the different route options, where your destination, if you make your destination the transit country, and then you just don't use the rest of the flight, and you come out in the transit country, and sometimes it works out being quite cheap,
cheaper.
because yeah, so these are the two hacks. I don't I can't remember the websites right now off the top of my head, but I'll put it in the description, so the viewers and listeners can check those websites. They actually cater for this kind of travel hacks.
That is interesting, but I think we have to be careful, because if you're booking a flight to a destination and you just get off at the transit, then you have to bear in mind that your return journey may not be possible. So it might be only lucrative if you're traveling in one direction and not planning to come back using the same airport. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good hack, and I would definitely like to try it. But I would like to try it in a place where I'm going in a single direction and I'm not coming back, because then
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would be
maybe you're
tricky.
coming
Because
back. Maybe you're coming back
yeah,
by road, or by
yes,
other means. Yeah, and then
yes,
yeah, of course, yeah, it depends on the situation on how each of these things would be more useful. But yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Right. Okay. So we talked about flights. We're going to a destination. We talked about accommodation, how we're going to manage that. Now we want to find, when now we are ready to sort of, we're in the destination. We're ready to explore this new town or city, but we need cash. So
Yes.
what's the insights on cash, or money in general when you're traveling? You mentioned Starling Bank, and you wanted to go into more detail as well. So yeah, let's hear about money for travel.
So I think I'm very fortunate enough to live in UK, because UK is a country which has a very good and very advanced banking system, and some of the banks, they just have an app, and it is quite convenient to use that sort of a bank account. So in UK, you have multiple fintech banks of the techno function banks, which are only a mobile app, which are not there. They don't have a physical branch. One of the most popular ones are Starling. Then you also have Monzo, you have Revolut, and then you have few others. Now, during my travel to Europe, before we did the South America backpack, we experimented with a lot of other cards, and then we came to the conclusion that Starling works out the cheapest, for the simple reason that Starling allows you to withdraw cash on a daily basis, and they put a limit on it, but it's a daily limit. Uh, Whereas banks like Monzo and Revolut, they allow you to withdraw money in a currency which is, say, euros, but they have a monthly limit. So you can only withdraw up to 250 pounds in a month. Any amount over and above that will incur interest. Whereas in Starling, you can withdraw up to 300 pounds per day, free of cost. So suppose you withdraw 300 pound on day one, you can't withdraw anymore. Then day two, your withdrawal limit gets reset, and you can withdraw another 300 pounds. And that was a game changer for us, because we wanted that flexibility of being able to withdraw money without paying too much of tax or interest. The other thing is, these banks, Starling especially, what they do is they follow the Mastercard rate. So suppose you go to, say, Ecuador, and in Ecuador they use US dollars. So if you buy anything in the local currency, which is the US dollars, Starling will allow you to buy it in the local currency. Never buy it in your own currency. Always buy in the local currency. And what Starling does is, it converts that local currency into the exchange rate set by Mastercard. So no matter where
Right.
you go, whenever you carry some cash, you always go to an agent or some place where you want to exchange money, and they follow a standard exchange rate. So in this case, Starling follows the Mastercard exchange rate, and that is one of the best rates that you can get. A Visa exchange rate is a bit more expensive, so Mastercard works out a bit cheaper. It's of course still not the cheapest, but it works out a bit cheaper. So with that bank, you can then withdraw cash anywhere you want to go. So we used a single debit card for all our cash requirements. And the best thing is, if in case your card gets stolen, we can quickly lock it in the app. So you no need to call a customer support agent or somewhere or anyone, and you can quickly lock it, and no one can then use your card, even if they have your PIN. So that's a very good feature. The other feature is we used it as a top-up card. So we had all our money in our UK bank account, and we transferred the money only what we needed. So we never had a lot of cash in one single card. Bear in mind, when you're traveling, you have possibilities where you can actually lose your card. So if you lose your card, you lose all the access and the access to all those currency in that account. So it's important to have that flexibility of having the main account in UK so that no one can use it, and then you top it up, say £100 or £200 on a day-to-day or a weekly basis, and that's the amount of cash you might need. So we also used credit cards during our travel, especially for car rentals, because in when you're renting a car or any automobile or anything, they normally ask you to pay a deposit, and normally credit card helps you to pay the deposit easily without using your debit card, because with a debit card you don't want to use your hard-earned cash as a deposit, because in case something happens then you have to pay it. But with a credit card you have the flexibility of paying the amount later in case something happens. The other thing that we found out is use a 0% credit card. So especially in the UK, you have this option of getting a 0% credit card. And that means anything you buy, you don't have to pay it immediately except the minimum monthly due. So suppose you buy flight tickets for up to £6,000, and if your credit card limit is say £10,000, then you buy flight tickets worth £6,000, and that 0% offer is there for 18 months. So for up to 18 months, you don't pay any interest on the amount that you have booked the flights. But
Right.
every month you still need to pay 10, 20, £30, the minimum due. And that gives you a lot of flexibility. So the cash we used Starling Bank, and that we also use that for payments, card payments, and then we use credit card for rentals. And these are the only two cards that we used. We didn't use anything else, and we didn't have to convert any of our money anywhere. So yeah, I mean, you just Starling Bank, you put the card in the ATM, and then withdraw cash. Some of the ATMs, I must say that some of the ATMs they charge their because you're withdrawing using a foreign bank card, the ATMs charge some money, but it still works out much cheaper than taking pounds or taking any other currency and then getting that converted.
Right, right, right. I mean, to be honest, I've come across these new, tech savvy banks as well, and they are actually quite convenient because they do focus on the user experience, and rather than all the bureaucracy of filling out and signing paper
Yes.
forms and all of that. It's just I think one of the one of the banks like this is Tide Bank for a business account, and I
Yes.
remember when I first started up my own business, I went to one of the high street banks, and it was after like a week of back and forth communication, I was fed up, and then it took me literally 10 minutes to start downloading the app from Google Play Store, and and to having an active account from within 10 minutes I was ready to go. So
Yes.
I'm very impressed with these banks, but I think it's important to mention that we are not being sponsored, or
Yes,
we're not
definitely. Yes.
sponsored by Starling Bank or Tide Bank. We're just really big fan of all the things that they're offering.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I have a Starling Bank business account. I mean, after using the personal account for during our travel, I actually thanked the CEO for introducing such a nice bank, because I mean, as a traveler, I think, and especially in an age where such applications are available on a smartphone, I think that displays how technology has become so essential in our lives, and it has actually helped our lives become much more simpler and easier without all the need of managing, going to a bank, doing this, doing that, signing a piece of paper. asking an agent, begging, okay, to negotiating for a good rate, etc., etc. And these banks, they make it so much more easy for all of us.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Right. Okay. So now we know about how to manage our money while we're traveling, but how do we manage our communication? I imagine there would be a lot of communication. And we talked about uploading photos, etc. already, but there are different kind of communication we have to do. We have to talk to our families, update them, or let them know about about our whereabouts, etc. But then there are other different kind of communication that are needed in while we're traveling. So let's hear a bit more about that.
So, when you're traveling, there are two main things you must always remember. You're interacting with two different kinds of audience. One is a virtual audience, and one is a real audience. The real audience is people in your hostel, the people in your tour guides, or the people in your tour, the places you visit, the restaurants, the cafes, the bars that you visit. So those are the real people you interact with. And then you have the virtual people, and the virtual people are people who are followers on your Instagram, who are followers on Facebook, and people on your contact list whom you communicate using WhatsApp, and also your family who's not traveling with you. So for different types of things, you need different types of communication. So for when it comes to family communication, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have WhatsApp. So with these mediums, you can easily connect with them. And then you have Google Chat, you have email, Gmail, etc. So you can actually quickly communicate with a lot of people who are not there physically with you. So this is virtual communication. When it comes to physical communication, language becomes a barrier, especially when you are going to a country and say you're visiting 10 different countries and each country speaks a different language, then it becomes a bit more challenging in order to communicate with the local people and trying to explain them. So we were lucky that in South America, the places that we visited, they spoke only two languages, Portuguese and Spanish. So what I did is I downloaded the app Google Translate, and then I downloaded the language pack, Spanish and Portuguese, and then I I I I saw that there was a pattern of sentences that I was using every time I communicate with someone. I always ask for how to go, where to look for accommodation, uh, and because I was vegetarian, I always used to say that okay, please don't add meat in my food. So those are some of the sentences which I use regularly. Or I could also ask for okay, how to book a cab, etc., etc. So some of the sentences that that you use frequently, you can actually translate them, and it's there in your history. So as soon as you find someone, you just show them the text, they read it, and they can type it in the app, and they can show it back, and it's translated. If you have data, what you can do is you can do real-time translation. So as you speak, it translates, and then the other person can actually see it, and they also speak something, it gets translated, and you read it. Those are the two different kinds of communication. The other communication which I think I missed is when you have to talk to your banks. So suppose you want to phone someone in your home country. Say your credit card is having an issue, or you are having some other problems. So Skype has Skype credits, and then so does Hangouts, Google Hangouts or Google Voice. They have some call credits. And with those call credits, say you top up for £10. With those call credits, you can actually call a landline number from your phone using data. Now imagine you're
Right.
calling the support number for a bank or a credit card. Say you're calling the call center. So it's a landline number. You're calling a landline number using your phone, using data, using Skype or Hangouts, and that just like blew me away, because I was like, wow, I can make I need to be connected on a data network, so I need to be connected on a Wi-Fi, but I can make a landline call, and it is not that expensive. It's like 1p per minute, so it is so cheap. And when it is so cheap, it just enables you and it frees up your mind, because you don't have to worry now about how will I make a call to UK from Brazil, which is so far away. I might have to pay so much money just in calls. But no, you don't have to do any such thing. You can directly call a landline using such thing. So this just changed the whole game because even when before we started traveling, I had to call someone in Argentina to modify the hostel booking, and I called them using Hangouts dialer. I had some credits. I called Argentina from UK using data, and it was so cheap. I spoke to about 2 or 3 minutes. I didn't have to even worry about how much time I'm talking for. So it is that simple. So I think these are the tools that actually helps you when you're traveling.
Yeah, that is very cool thing to know actually. I mean, a lot of the times you know, even if you're not traveling, a lot of the times you do come across situation where you have to call landlines of, you know, different authorities, you know, in different countries, and it's actually a very good piece of information to know and utilize in future. That's actually very good to know. I didn't know. I mean, I knew about VoIP calls, you know, various
Yes.
VoIP calls, but I didn't know Google Hangouts can, you know, can do it. Because obviously, you know, something, you know, from a big corporate like Google, you know, you can rely a little bit more that their software or their services would be a little bit more reliable in different ways.
So they
So
do that, and they, of course, it costs you money, but at least it makes your life so easy.
yes, yes, absolutely, and that's the whole point, isn't it? With technology, that's what we're looking for. So you mentioned Google Translate, obviously, but then I've heard about Google Lens. Is that another tool that we can use for anything in while we're traveling?
Yes, yes, yes. Google Lens actually helps when you are in restaurants and you're looking at a menu.
Right.
So, so Google Lens does real-time translation. So suppose you have a menu in Spanish or say Portuguese, and you don't understand and you don't want to feel embarrassed in front of a waiter. So you just point your phone's camera to the or open Google Lens in your phone, and then point your phone's camera to the menu, and Google Lens will replace the text in real time. So as you're moving, you can see the alphabets getting translated, and you can actually read. So suppose something is written in cerveza is beer in English, so it will translate cerveza into beer, and it will show beer instead of cerveza in real time.
Wow.
And that is a very interesting tech that I think that helped us a lot, especially when we had to look at menus. Of course, I had data, I had a SIM card, I had the language packs available, so it was quite convenient. But I think such things makes your life so much easier, especially when you have to look at text translation. Because a lot of times, what will happen is you are hiking and you're going to a remote place, and you have some text written, but you don't understand where it is, what does it mean. And if you have a phone that can translate that immediately for you, I think that's a huge benefit, because then you don't have to wait for a person to come to translate you that text. Now you can in real time translate the text and move on. You can take a decision and you can move on.
Right. Okay. But are you not limited by I mean, obviously you mentioned you know, dual SIM cards, etc. But you know, you have to have data in you know, like, is there like a way to like download the whole language pack so you don't always have to rely on
So
data?
with Google Translate, you can download the language pack. So yes, you
Right.
can download the language pack. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay.
So it
And
does help.
you can do the same with Google Maps as well, can't you? You can download
Google Maps,
your
yes.
your whole you know, the area that you know you're gonna visit. You download it beforehand in Wi-Fi, so you have it in your phone.
But Google Maps has a limitation. The problem with Google Maps is remote places, hikes, etc. They are not mapped that well. There is another application called Maps.me, and we use that quite a lot, even for and especially for offline navigation. The problem with Google Maps we faced is, especially when if you are driving a car or if you're going on a hike, it's not that great. So we relied on Maps.me. It is it's a free app, and you can download maps of particular areas and then you can delete them, and they give you local information really well. So even routes which are for hikes, so suppose you're going on a hike and you rely on GPS, but you're not sure where the route is going. Maps.me is very helpful. Google Maps, you cannot see routes for hikes. And then we also use maps.me for navigation in car. So you download the map and you put the navigation, and then it will just help you navigate using maps in real time, without worrying about data, because you've already downloaded the maps.
Right, right, right. Okay, I mean that I was gonna actually next thing I was gonna ask was about navigation, and it's good because a lot of the times we're just a lot of us are just blindly reliant on Google Maps and don't know
Yes.
any other alternative. It's really good to know the alternatives and their benefits and their features that you don't get in Google Maps. I've heard about this other one called Waze as well, Waze app. That's quite another popular alternative. What
So
Why do people use that one?
Waze is good because Waze actually is acquired by Google now. So Waze started off as an independent company, but is acquired by Google. And Waze actually is more beneficial in city traffic because it gives you real-time traffic information, and because it has a social aspect to navigation. So people will get alerts, and you can actually tell others whether you have seen a roadblock or whether there is an obstruction, whether there is a traffic, etc., etc. Whether you see a police car, whether you see a road accident, you can actually alert other drivers using the application. So it has got a social aspect to it. But Waze again is acquired by Google, so you can of course definitely use it. And Waze can be used in offline mode. Even Google Maps can be used in offline mode. But I thought personally, Maps.me, I think it was more reliable.
Right, right.
So from my experience point of view, it's more reliable. It's based on the open source maps, open street map project, I think, OSM. And yeah, it's and actually this application was recommended by another traveler. And we had gone to Europe for a weekend, and we met a traveler from India, and he was traveling on his motorbike, and he told us about this app, which I'd never heard of, and he said that how it helped him to navigate across Europe. And that's when we started using it for our travels, and I could definitely see a huge benefit of using it.
Right, okay. Definitely I want to explore that as well. I haven't used it myself, but yeah, I definitely want to try that. Right, okay. So we've already talked about phone, dual SIM card and etc. as well. So that part is also, good to know. You mentioned in the beginning about document management and the whole management of all the information together. So tell us a little bit more in detail about how you do all these documents, because not all of us. I mean, I have a British passport, but even British passport doesn't, take me everywhere without visa. So there is visa management, there is all kinds of, other permits and etc. So how do you manage all of that?
So initially, before our travel, we had to book everything in advance. So that included visas, because we didn't want to take the hassle of going for a visa application within the country. Again, it is purely because we had limited time. If you are doing long-term travel, you have enough time to book for a visa appointment. I think best is to do that when you're in that country. But in our case, because we were doing a very quick travel through 8 countries in 5 months, we had to plan everything in advance, especially because I had an Indian passport, my wife had a British passport. So we booked all the visas in advance, and then what we did is we scanned every page of our passport, including all the visas, including all the existing stamps, and then we put it on Google Drive. So in case we lost our passport, it's actually easy to go to an embassy and show them, okay, this is the passport, these are all my visas, I have lost it. Can you please issue me a new travel document or something like that? Of course, you will not get your visas back. It's a very unfortunate thing if you lose your passport, but it is actually important to scan all your pages because that helps you to get a travel document much more quicker rather than staying in a country and spending money on accommodation and etc. etc. The other thing is route. So we talked about using Google Maps and Google My Maps to plan the route. But once you plan the route, you need to put like where what dates you will be where, so you can plan your accommodation and also your flights. Especially in a travel where you have 5 months limited time, it's important that you know where you will be at a certain place, because that will help you to book flights. And I also mentioned that we booked flights only within the country. What we noticed is if you book a local flight, a domestic flight, it's much cheaper. If you book an international flight, that's expensive. So whenever you cross a border, cross by land. And whenever you have to go domestically anywhere, try a flight because it's much faster, much quicker. Um, that's how we did our I mean the planning for the routes, etc. Then the comes to the boarding passes and the tickets and the hotel bookings and etc. So what I did is I had an Excel sheet to uh, record everything of where we are, what are the contact numbers, what is the address, etc. This helps us, not just me but also my family, because suppose I'm stuck somewhere or I'm lost and I have not called them in a day or two and they are not aware of my whereabouts, they can actually quickly call the hotel or hostel that we have gone to because we have a booking, and they can contact them and ask for our information. And I think that is very important as well, because if you have a centralized place of managing this information, it helps everyone, you, your partner, your family members, because they are at ease because they know, okay, at this date they are there. Of course, I mean, I am super organized. I might say not everyone is that organized, but essentially Google Drive, OneDrive, I think it's important that you put all your documents there so everyone has easy access to it. Maybe your family members, your friends, your partners, so they have easy access to those documents. Then for booking all the information, Gmail. So you email companies asking for tour guides, asking for better rates, asking for information, etc., etc. So Gmail was a chosen option for managing all the communication, and you can use Gmail from your mobile phone as well. And also try to download few documents which are important, especially the passport scans, maybe the photographs that you might need offline in your phone, because sometimes you may not be able to connect to the internet at a border or an embassy or yeah, at an airport, and you might need a photograph or a photo of your passport. So some documents it's better to scan it and keep it in your phone. So we used all the Google Maps, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive, Gmail, and then for scanning documents. So suppose you visit few countries, after that you might have few stamps, and if you want to keep a record of which countries you visited, you might want to take a picture of those. So we use Microsoft Office Lens. You can use Google Lens or you can use Office Lens, and both take a picture and then save it in your phone. So, and that's almost like a scan quality from your smartphone. So that helps in scanning and storing a photograph of a page of your passport or any other important document and then uploading it somewhere. Because if you take a standard photo, it just looks like a photo. But if you use these app Office Lens, it shows that it's like a scanned document. So yeah, those apps are, yeah, quite good.
Great, great. These are all really good information, and I mean, I'm fascinated by, after hearing your story, and I'm actually really motivated to do something like that myself. And all of this information is just so helpful, and I'm gonna start creating all of these documents and an Excel file to track
Yes.
and plan everything as well. And I do recommend this. I mean, even though I don't have a frame of reference because I haven't backpacked, but yeah, just listening from Amit, I'm just so excited, and I would recommend that to our viewers and listeners as well. It is definitely one of the things you want to keep in your bucket list, and wanna give that a go. So I think I have a good understanding from, start to finish. We covered from flights to what you're gonna do and how you're gonna eventually come back, and an overall management of the whole travel plan. Do you have anything else that you want to add for our listeners and viewers?
I think one last tip is if you want to save on accommodation, book a overnight journey by bus or flight so that you can save on some accommodation cost. So what we noticed is that if you're traveling to, say, in a country, you're traveling from one city to another. If you go by bus, you first save a lot of money because it's cheap. The second thing is you save on accommodation because you're sleeping in the bus for the night journey, so you
Right.
save on accommodation, and you reach the destination by morning, and then you can freshen up and then start exploring. Um, and in South America, some of the buses, they are really luxurious. You will have a TV with movies, and you will have recliners, and you will get blankets, you'll get a water bottle, some people even give you some food, etc. So depending upon how much you can afford, you can actually travel luxuriously in a bus, and it is so comfortable that we actually quite enjoyed our traveling in buses. There was actually in one of the buses, there was actually a person handing out blankets, food, and etc., etc. And they had
Just
different
like just
classes.
like
They have different like economy and business class in a bus.
oh. Right, okay. That is, yeah, no, I've been to some of these luxurious buses, and they are actually, you wouldn't have the tiredness of traveling, you could
Yes,
actually have a good night's sleep with blanket and air conditioned and everything. And
yes,
yeah, I've experienced that. That is actually quite, they have really made it into like a flight almost, where you get the blankets and the food and everything. Yeah, definitely. That is a really good tip. You could that definitely. I mean, one of the main costs, as you mentioned, is accommodation costs, and
yes.
time is also very important. So yeah, you can save on both. Very very cool tip. Great. So yeah, this has been a very informative and very exciting, insightful talk. Thank you, Amit, for sharing all of that. Yeah, to our listeners and viewers, I hope you guys definitely have a crack at doing this, even if it's not for 5 months or a year, even if it is for a month. I definitely think it's something that everyone should at least, try and do once in a lifetime. Thank you everyone very much for listening to us, and we will hopefully see you guys again next week with a brand new topic. And yeah, please feel free to subscribe and like, so you can keep listening to our talks, and stay in touch.
Thanks a lot, everyone, and bye.